Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Bakari Lumumba, back once again, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black. Before we get started, make sure you hit the subscribe and the like button. As you know, I'm going for that HBO special. That means help your boy out. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of summer, and we can't do that without your help. So we're going to dive right in. As you all know, I always start my videos by quoting Queen Mother, one of our greatest ancestors in the African American movement for, of course, for human rights here in America. That is Queen Mother Fannie Lou Hamer, who taught us to never forget where we've come from and always praise the bridges that carried us over. And so in doing so, I want to honor the moral responsibility to remember. And in doing so today, we're going to be honoring and remembering the East St. Louis race riot that took place, unfortunately, July 3rd, 1919. That is, of course, 103 years ago today. And of course, this race riot was due to the competition for jobs, right? It was a labor-based race riot that took the lives of hundreds of African Americans in East St. Louis. As we all know, during that time in the 1910s, 1920s, we had the Great Migration, was African Americans moved from the South to the North, seeking, of course, better jobs, higher wages, better housing, of course, and of course a reprieve from the indignities of Jim Crowism and the horrors of state-sponsored terrorism. But however, when we came north many years ago, over a century ago, of course, is when the first Great Migration took place. What we found was, of course, Jim Crowism. And then what we found was, of course, a heightened level, oftentimes, of racism in the urban areas than we face in the rural South. Unfortunately, also, I think it's very important when we talk about the East St. Louis race riot, and there's a couple of things we're going to touch on. But first and foremost, this was a form of, I would argue, state-sponsored lynching, okay? Oftentimes when we think of lynching, we think of an African American being accused of a crime, and as a result, we're dealing with an extrajudicial killing of a Black person. This is something that, unfortunately, we're still dealing with today. However, what we oftentimes find historically when we look at the Black past is that oftentimes lynching victims were business owners. These were individuals who were able to develop a level of financial independence from the white power structure. This angered many white people, and as a result, it resulted in, of course, Black death. Unfortunately, I think the movie Rosewood, actually, which came out, I believe, in 1997, which starred an ensemble Black cast, touches a bit on that as well, as the brothers and sisters in Rosewood, Florida were doing much better than the white people in Sumter. And as a result, that led to some of the jealousy that led to them destroying the entire town. Also, when we talk about what took place in 1919, this is according to the Pan-Africanist historian and Harvard-trained Howard University professor Rayford Logan. He actually coined the term the Nadir of Race Relations in his book, The Betrayal of the Negro. From Rutherford B. Hayes to Woodrow Wilson. If you haven't read this book or you don't know about it, please check it out. It's entitled The Betrayal of the Negro, From Rutherford B. Hayes to Woodrow Wilson, written by a Harvard University educated Pan-Africanist historian. He, of course, was the former director of the Department of History at Howard University. Shout out to all the HBCUs out there. But he really chronicled, because I'm just going to read a brief synopsis of the book. The Betrayal of the Negro examines every aspect of our country's post-Reconstruction retreat from equality. The economic factors, the Supreme Court decisions, Booker T. Washington and his era of compromise. And in a unique and disturbing survey, the racist caricatures that dominated the most liberal newspapers and magazines of the day. Dispassionate and insightful, Logan unfolds a narrative of national betrayal as harrowing as it is heartbreaking. So once again, this is the book entitled Betrayal of the Negro, From Rutherford B. Hayes to Woodrow Wilson. This is where our strong brother was able to actually coin the term the Nadir of Racial Relations, which is nowadays known as the first Nadir, where he talks about the betrayal of African Americans during post-Reconstruction. Of course, we know that the Black past teaches us that whenever there have been real or perceived periods of racial progress, it's been followed by periods of racial retrenchment. The first, of course, we know of being the era of Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877, and that resulted in, of course, the first Nadir. Then we had the Civil Rights Movement, right, from 1954 to 1968, that led to, of course, the Nixon administration's emphasis on law and order to counter civil disobedience, but then of course the deindustrialization of America's inner cities. And then last but not least, we had the historic election of Barack Obama. We're not going to get into Barack Obama's politics and the administration, what they did or did not do to inhibit or, of course, promote Black progress. That's a conversation for another day. But what we are going to talk about is that after the historic election of Barack Obama, we saw a rise, a resurgence in white nationalist hate groups. We saw a rise in white vigilantism. And of course, we saw a rise in the extrajudicial killings of African Americans at a rate that rivaled the first Nadir. So I think we have to put all these issues in context and understand that when people say, well, why don't we see vibrant or progressive, thriving Black communities? Part of that is due to what? Whenever there's been real or perceived periods of racial progress in America, it's been followed by periods of racial retrenchment, and what we're really getting to is anti-Black racism. Not just racism, but anti-Black racism. And we know anti-Black racism is a term that argues that anti-Black racism argues, of course, that Blackness has and I'm trying to think of the proper word here, but Blackness has a adversarial relationship with the concept and possibility of humanity, of course, not only in the Western world, but globally. With that being said, going back to the East St. Louis race riot that, of course, took place July 3rd, 1919, 103 years ago today, one of the things that we found, this is, of course, an eyewitness account that was given to the St. Louis Dispatch, was one that they argued that the police response, of course, was indifferent. Oftentimes they helped, of course, the vigilantes, of course, brutalize, assault, maim, and kill a legion of course, our ancestors. Secondly, we even saw this take place with the National Guard, right? So there's an argument that can be made here that we say that this just wasn't a bunch of local toughs. This just wasn't at the state level, at the federal level. We saw that the federal government was complicit, and of course, not only harming, but also inhibiting Black life and progress. But I think what is also telling is the response in the Black community. Of course, the NAACP, which was the flagship civil rights organization in Black America at the time, was led by none other than W.E.B. Du Bois, who, of course, was known for his seminal work, Souls of Black Folks, where he coined the term double consciousness. He was known for, of course, his PhD dissertation on the Philadelphia Negro, which was published in 1899, which was the first actual sociological study of the African American community in America. And then, of course, he went on to do a number of great things. He had the Niagara movement, so on and so forth. But with the NAACP's response was to have a silent march down Fifth Avenue in, of course, New York City, Manhattan, New York City, in which, unfortunately, the men wore black, the women and children wore white. They marched down the street silently. Marcus Garvey, of course, was repulsed by this response and argued that he was appalled. And one thing he stated was, this is not a time for fine words, it's a time for action. And Marcus Garvey's plan was, of course, to build Black people up financially so that we could have the requisite power necessary to repel these type of harms that were being done to us, not only here in America, but globally as well. So I just wanted to take time to honor our brothers and sisters who, I would argue and believe, fought courageously against legion and wave after wave of white vigilantes and, of course, state-sponsored terrorists who sought to inhibit Black people from having the constitutional right, the legal right, the inalienable right, the human right, the God-given right, if you believe in that type of thing, to have it work and have a living wage. So just want to take time to honor our brothers and sisters and honor the moral responsibility to remember our brothers and sisters who, unfortunately, those who died and, of course, those who survived the East St. Louis race riot of July 3rd, 1919. But that's all I have for now. Until next time, you all know what to do. Make sure you always bet on Black. Make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Until next time, peace.